Welcome back to MidPoint. National spokesperson for CORE, the Congress of Racial Equality, activist, political analyst, and also executive director of TeaParty.net. Niger Innis joins us here in the studio. Niger, let's see. The Democrats didn't do very well with the war on women, so now it looks like they're this. Of course, there's another one of those. Gee, I wonder if they did real well. Now they're launching other wars here. Tim Scott, the first black senator elected from the Deep South since Reconstruction, and he is already being assailed, quite frankly, as some people, by something as an Uncle Tom, who's leaving the black voters behind, saying he doesn't represent black voters and it's all a fraud. Is this strategy, where is this strategy coming from? And how do you then counter that by saying, yes, indeed, there are black Americans who are understanding the difference in the parties and are turning to the Republican side?
Well, first of all, I'm glad you connected the war on women to this racial play that the liberals and the so-called progressives often play. I call it the Sharptonization of the Democratic Party and the progressive movement. You know, Al Sharpton came to fame by perpetuating a racial fraud, but basically waving the racial bloody red shirt. And that's what Democrats, unfortunately, too many Democrats and too many progressives do. They don't argue the issues. They don't argue policy. They just throw out the bloody red shirt, be it for women one day, blacks another day, Latinos another day. And, you know, they try to appeal to the lowest common denominator. And quite frankly, I would say that there's a little bit of bigotry involved in that process, because you're presuming that individuals, because of the virtue of their ethnicity or their gender, are one-issue people.
They're saying here, though, that the black voters went overwhelmingly against Tim Scott in the election. And they are claiming, and again, this is an article from Salon, which again is a left-wing leaning publication on the web, saying that obviously, forget it, the Republicans are lying. Black America still wants to go with Democrats, yet we've had guests on this show tell us time and time again that in their opinion, black America is waking up.
And that's their fear. Their fear is that the liberal monopoly that has dominated black communities and urban communities for over 50 years, that it's being challenged. Tim Scott, when he won his election as senator, he became the first senator popularly elected in the Deep South, black senator to be popularly elected in the Deep South ever. Because even when blacks won after Reconstruction, they were elected by state legislatures, because that was the rule, not just for blacks, but for any senator. This is the first time that a majority of people, overwhelming majority, by the way, Tim Scott got more votes than Lindsey Graham did in South Carolina. Now, you would think that this would be a moment of celebration for our country, a moment of celebration for the South, a moment of celebration for blacks and whites and all Americans. And yet the liberals have to play their racial game with it.
Who are the bigots here then on the left? Who are the people driving this?
Those are the people that have bought into and that now have a default setting, and you heard it here first, the Sharptonization syndrome, which is racializing or genderizing every particular issue, because you can't argue the facts, you can't argue the policy, so just wave the bloody shirt.
Is Al Sharpton the most dangerous person, or one of the most dangerous people in America right now in bringing this country back together racially? Well,
you know something funny about him? If Al Sharpton were right here, you'd find him to be a charming individual.
I find that hard to believe.
He's very, very smart, okay? And ironically, he has actually graduated past his former self. But the Democratic Party, starting from the President of the United States, the former Attorney General, Eric Holder, and a whole litany of Democrat politicians and progressive leaders have embraced the most coarse racial pandering that you can imagine.
Why? Is that the only thing they believe that black America will understand? Why do they do that?
There is a certain degree of bigotry there. There is a belief that, you know, this is the way we can gin up the black vote. This is the way we can get out the vote. You saw the Georgia Democratic Party actually put out a poster saying, if you don't want another Trayvon Martin, if you don't want another Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri, you got to come and vote Democrat.
Are they then basically, more than anybody else, part of the driving force behind the continuing racial divide in this country? More than anybody else.
What is particularly tragic, and I put as number one criminal in all of this, is Barack Hussein Obama. Because Barack Hussein Obama rode the hope and the wishes of millions of Americans that his presidency would bring us together, we would get out of the racial politics, and it is now more racially polarized, it is more politically polarized, it is more gender polarized, more class polarized a country than it ever has been. But it is something that's artificial. The American people are in very, very good shape. I mean, the American people, those Southerners in South Carolina that gave Tim Scott more votes than they gave Lindsey Graham, who's been there for forever, they're in good shape. The country is in good shape. But the leadership, and the leadership particularly within the progressive movement and among the Democrats, is disgraceful.
10 seconds. Is Barack Obama a bigot?
No, I think he's worse than that. I think he's a cynic. And I think he will use whatever lever he needs to keep himself in power and perpetuate himself in power. In some ways, that's even worse than a bigot who just might be ignorant.
There you go. Niger Innis, pleasure to have you on the show, my friend.
My pleasure.
Come back anytime.
I'd like that.
Makeup people would love it. You can't take them with you, by the way.
They
Forget
take
that.
good care of me
Yes,
down
they
here.
do, all the time. Breaking back with yet another reason why no matter the bent of the politician, they cannot hide from the midpoint manner of discerning what they mean. It's how they move.